again, my name is Gabe Zolna. This is the 6th of April, 2018. For those folks that have watched me for any period of time, you know that I'm big on pieces of the puzzle. I just received this piece of information, and I did a little bit of my own searching. This was written on April the 5th. It was posted by Jane Coston. That's C-O-A-S-T-O-N. And it's titled, "New Evidence Shows the Pulse Nightclub Shooting Wasn't About Anti-LGBTQ Hate." The trial of the Pulse nightclub shooter's wife dramatically changed the narrative about the deadly attack. It's been nearly 2 years since the mass shooting at Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida that killed 49 people. Widely believed to be an act of aggression against the club's LGBTQ clientele, and undeniably a homophobic hate crime. There is now conclusive evidence that the shooter wasn't intending to target LGBTQ people at all. In fact, he allegedly had no idea Pulse was a gay club and simply Googled Orlando nightclubs after finding that security at his original target, a major shopping and entertainment complex, was too high, as reported by ClickOrlando.com. This evidence dramatically changes the mass shooting narrative. Politicians and individuals across the political spectrum had positioned it as an anti-LGBTQ hate crime. Instead, the new evidence suggests the Pulse nightclub shooting was intended as revenge for U.S. anti-terror policies abroad. The evidence emerged during the trial of the shooter's wife, Noor Salman, whom the federal government charged with aiding and abetting the obstruction of justice. Federal prosecutors argued that Salman had helped her husband plan and orchestrate the attack. She was acquitted by a jury last Friday, a rare occurrence when most defendants accused of terror charges accept plea deals, and the average conviction rate in such cases is above 90%. The shooter's motive was apparently revenge for a United States bombing campaign on ISIS targets in the Middle East. He had pledged allegiance to ISIS leaders Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, and during the Pulse shooting posted to Facebook, quote, "You kill innocent women and children by doing U.S. airstrikes. Now taste their Islamic State vengeance," end quote. In his final post, he wrote, quote, "In the next few days, you will see attacks from the Islamic State in the USA," end quote. Salman's attorney introduced evidence showing far from assisting the shooter, she was a victim of her husband's abuse, including frequent beating and sexual assault. The Pulse nightclub shooting was the deadliest attack on LGBTQ people in American history, and liberals and conservatives, including then President Donald Trump, assumed the shooting was based on the victim's sexual orientation and gender identity. Trump and other Republicans attempted to use their response to the shooting to argue that they were true pro-LGBTQ advocates because of their support for immigration restrictions aimed at Muslims. In a speech on June the 13th, the day after the shooting, Trump said, "This is a very dark moment in American history. A radical Islamic terrorist targeted the nightclub, not only because he wanted to kill Americans, but in order to execute gay and lesbian citizens because of their sexual orientation." The following day at a North Carolina rally, Trump said, quote, "We want to live in a country where gay and lesbian Americans and all Americans are safe from radical Islam, which, by the way, wants to murder and has murdered gays as they enslave women," end quote. During the Trump speech at the Republican National Convention, where he accepted his party's presidential nomination, he said, quote, "Only weeks ago in Orlando, Florida, 49 wonderful Americans were savagely murdered by the Islamic terrorists. This time, the terrorists target the LGBTQ community. No good. And we're going to stop it. As your president, I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful foreign ideology." But the evidence shows otherwise. The shooters didn't target LGBTQ people. He didn't even realize Pulse was a gay-oriented nightclub, asking a security guard at the club where all the women were just before he started shooting. After mass shooting, observers, including journalists, often search for a motive, sometimes even before the first victims have been identified. But the Pulse shooting proves that initial narratives about mass shooters' motivations are often wrong. And those narratives can be far more powerful than the truth. Now, the next video is going to be somewhat interesting. Another piece of the puzzle. Thanks for listening.